Thank you. Please call me Jane, not Dr. Wayland. Yeah. Only my students have to do that, and only till they cross the stage, and then they don't have to do that anymore. I'm delighted to be with you today. The topic about marketing analytics, as I began to look into this, I thought, why did I suggest this topic? This was just a little too big. It's kind of an interesting topic, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we can do in the short run to start thinking about marketing analytics. And I'm going to give you a few tools to play with, and we'll just kind of answer some questions you might have about the analytics, because analytics is all about data, but there's lots of data out there, but which ones are important to us? When I took over as dean, we had a problem that kind of hit us in the face, and that was graduate enrollment declined 18% for us between fall and spring. Don't tell anybody that. And but it was an unexpected kind of thing for us. We have had continual growth in graduate education at the college, and we kind of went, whoa, and I'm going, well, weren't we looking for? Why did this hit us in this type of manner? So I'm going to take this lecture to heart. I call it a lecture, I'm a professor. This presentation to heart, and we're going to start doing some analytics at school based on some of those types of things. And so I'm going to use some examples of the things I know best, and unfortunately for you, that's education. But at any rate, before I get started, I do have a commercial. You know, the NCAA girls tournament, the first and second round, is going to be at Jack Stevens on next Sunday and Tuesday. We are thrilled to have that at UALR. It is a real cool for us that they're not going to be at Verizon. They're going to be on our campus. I'm excited about that, and please call and get tickets. The girls play at 5:40 on Sunday afternoon. They play Delaware, and they've got the top basketball player in the country. She's 6'4", but we're going to stop her. I have faith, but we don't have anybody 6'4", so I don't know what they're going to do about that. But anyway, it should be exciting girls basketball, and come celebrate with UALR. So that's my commercial for the day, and I'll hush and move on. Thank you for letting me, indulging me. There we go. Why marketing analytics? This is kind of an old ad, but you know, I guess I'm old and I love it, and I want to read it to you because I bet you can't see it. I don't know who you are. I don't know your company. I don't know your company's product. I don't know what your company stands for. I don't know your company's customers. I don't know your company's record. I don't know your company's reputation. Now, what was it you wanted to sell me? Have y'all run into some of these curmudgeons in some of your sales work? Well, that's because there was no marketing to go advance, and so marketing is part of the advance of the sales, but we have always been viewed as a cost center. And marketing in tough times, when budgets are tough and we don't want to cut our people, we certainly don't want to cut our sales force, we look at that marketing budget and we start cutting. And because we've always been viewed as a cost center. And we have to change that thought process, because marketing, you don't do marketing, you produce this. But on the other hand, we have not been very good about selling what we do in marketing to our own bosses, to the CEOs and the CFOs and all those people who can cut our budgets in marketing. 57% of marketers cited measurement, analysis, and learning as the biggest bottleneck that they face with their organizations. And this was a survey, an annual survey of marketers in 2011, that we don't measure well, we certainly don't analyze it well, we don't lead it to good decisions. And so that's why marketing analytics in the past few years has really come to the forefront. We in marketing, we measure everything. I mean, we know how to go out and ask. And sales is the way we always point. We always point to sales as our success. And sales are easy to measure. You either make the sale and you don't, and you can figure out your profit margin from that. So sales is where we usually go to. But there's more to it, and we need to think about some of those issues. 40%, this is kind of scary to me. Do not depend on your gut. 40% of business decisions are still based on judgment alone, not facts. And I think this is kind of scary for us. And the reason it is scary for us is because many of you may have that gut sense of your business, and you may know, and sometimes you just got to pull the trigger and go, and I understand that. But if you are not in a stagnant environment and you're in a dynamic environment, and like we got caught, okay, 18% decline graduate, that was a big hit for us. We kind of got caught. And higher education is in a sense of flux. So I heard Dr. Bobbitt with the Arkansas system speak yesterday, and I came away going, oh, my world has just changed, and it has been changing. Higher education, we think about it being being stagnant. It is no longer. We have more competitors than we have ever had before. We have more delivery methods than we ever had before. Students want more choices. They don't get up and, one morning and say, hey, I'm headed to a university. They want choice. They go to work first. Our world is so dynamic and changing, and I bet most of yours are as well. So even if I have a sense of what's happened and done well in the past, is it going to work for us in the future? Well, again, sometimes you just go with what feels right, and I understand that need, and I understand that sometimes you just go with no information because you don't have a choice. But this is kind of scary, and this is really not good business. What we need to do is start looking at our facts, start gathering our facts and gathering our analysis so that we can actually make some decent decisions. I want to talk a little bit about the difference between marketing analytics and web analytics. I'm not going to talk about web analytics today. That's your Google, and when you start tracking your social media. Who was in social media? You do some of the social media. Who was that back there? When you start tracking the clicks through and analyzing that, that's all web analytics, and that's very good. Sometimes we don't even get into the the Google Analytics as much as we just look at how many times people load our pages and how they visit and how much they stayed, and that's kind of the focus on the page view. And I don't want to talk about that today. That's a little bit beyond my scope today. But we're going to talk about the marketing analytics, the traffic, leads, and sales. This focuses on the return on investment for the marketing initiatives. It's not about, feel good. It's about how that actually made it to the bottom line. And you use web analytics in your measurement many times, but I'm going to talk about the marketing analytics mostly today. When we talk about marketing, get away from saying, hey, I saved, money on leads, and it doesn't cost me as much money to get a lead now. And you know what your boss is going to do? He's going to take your budget away because you just confessed you were inefficient. So you don't want to do that. What you want to do is talk about the fact in revenue and profits, because that's what these people care about. They don't really care about brand image unless you can quantify brand image down to the bottom line. And so you want to avoid the soft metrics, brand awareness, impressions, and reach. Now let me say that we still measure those, but perhaps that's an internal marketing issue. That's not what you tell your boss, because he doesn't care, or she doesn't care. I like that. She doesn't care. They don't care. What they care about is how all this money that you're spending is hitting their bottom line, or it leads to a sales lead that finally, eventually whittles down into your bottom line. So we need to get away from our cost, even though I would tell you we do need to measure brand awareness. We all know that branding is important. I'm not going to, that's my whole world, right? It's branding and marketing, that's important. How many times they see our ads or our communications, whatever they mean, how many times they like us on Facebook, all that's important. But it doesn't tell your boss why you're worth the money that you're spending every day. And the reach, certainly, we talk about reach. That's an old measurement of marketing, is how many people we reach. Well, reach is fine, but if I don't convert any of those people, it really doesn't matter, right? So let's talk about revenue and profits. These are the things that you want to begin building your model around. And this is just the kind of the first stage as we go through looking at marketing analytics. Large firms, when they hire these great consultants, and they have really intense metrics on a lot of different areas. But if we're just going to begin, let's think about the return on investment. How many incremental sales are generated? Now, I'm going to use an example of an open house. This is why this has really hit me lately. We had an open house, which is the way we generate students to come to our, in this case, it was graduate programs. We decided to have it downtown at the Clinton Center because they have big parking lots and we don't at UALR. You've been to our parking lots? They're kind of hard, okay? So we had it downtown. And the Clinton Center has good food. It's great food, okay? Now I can look at that as, a really good event, but I'm going to analyze that event as we go through, and I don't have all my cost figures, but we're going to start finding those things. But I have to look at incremental sales. So let's assume at an open house we have 20 people. If I were going to get 15 of those people without the open house, I only got 5, right? So you have to look only at the incremental sales. What you're getting anyway doesn't matter because you're getting those, right? So you've got to consider it's only the incremental amount. How much revenue are you going to get? Now you can probably tell me that. You know what your sales revenue is. We don't look at sales revenue. We look at tuition. Okay, we have a lot of revenue streams, and tuition being our major one. And I can look at the tuition, and so each student is going to spend about $8,000 if they take 10 courses from me in the graduate program. Okay, so that's $8,000 over 18 months to 2 years. That's not an $8,000 sale today. Okay, so you have to think of it that way too. So you can figure out what your sales produces and what's your gross margin percentage. What are you adding to the bottom line? And what is the total marketing and sales investment? Now this is where we forget to add in all our cost. Okay, and we'll show you an example. I don't know if you can see this one very well or not, but this is a very simple basic calculation. Okay, you got your campaign. In this case, all the marketing was $165, but do not forget your marketing staff expense. For example, if you're going to have a social media campaign and you don't count the amount of hours it takes for someone to get in there and tweet and Facebook, and they say, oh, this is free. It is not free. Someone is doing it, and whatever you earn about per hour is a cost for that program. So you've got to put in all those costs, and so you do your staff, you can figure out your daily rate, the number of days. Well, I figured on our event last night that my secretary probably put in 8 hours, spread out over a month perhaps, and I'm just estimating, I have no idea because I'm not measuring it. So, okay, let's say she put in 8 hours, and I don't know, let's say she earns $20 an hour. I have no idea what she earns an hour, but let's just assume. You start adding that up. Also for me, I had 15 faculty there last night. They spent 2 hours. 15 faculty, and I kind of ballparked it at $75 an hour, and that's not real, but I was ballparking at $75 an hour because we only paid for 9 months. And so I had 15 faculty there at $75. That's $150 of their time if I did a quarterly, and faculty would really be insulted if I told them they were being paid by the hour. But you got to quantify it some way. So I ended up, plus the food, and we had no alcohol, so it was cheap, for the. I estimated about $6,000 for that event when I include my staff. Okay, all the staff that went, and everybody that showed up, shake hands. You know how many people I had show up? 5. We would have gotten 3 of them. I bet our conversion rate will be 1. Okay? You're going, whoa. Well, they used to work for us. Don't go out and say this to anybody because we have a great program. They used to work for us. What did I say earlier? Well, now I know. And if I take out all my faculty and I just throw in, the $1,200 it cooked for food for the venue, 5 people, you divide that by 5, well, that's okay. Not when you put in all the other expenses. And then you have to realize, what is our reach? And I can't tell you what our reach is. I was playing with this last night because I was going, well, I got to talk about something. 3,000. I figure our reach, I only care, our target market are people with college degrees between, 24 and, Mark, what do you say, 35 maybe? 24, 35 is about our, Well, how many of those in the city? I have never identified that. I never had to because we always got all the students we wanted. New world. So I've got to fix that. I've got to figure out. So let's just say there's 3,000 out there. I ended up with 5. So I ended up with 5. And I've only got 1 that by extra. So my incremental revenue, when I worked through this, we were in the hole. I think I had a negative return on investment. Okay, but as you can see in the example, you got to get down here to your net profit, and then you end up with it, in this case, a return on investment of 17%. So if you look at your events, your trade shows, all the things that you do in creating your campaigns, it's not just the cost of the ad, it's all the time that your staff puts into it. Then you start looking at your return on investment. But let's say you end up with an 18% return on investment on a function that you've done or something. You can take that to the bank with your boss and say, by God, I'm worth it. Thank you very much. Look what I did for you. Now, I'm not going to tell my provost that I had a negative return on my investment for that. I think I'll just keep that one to myself. It's not out of this room. But it sure did open my eyes. Now, I knew when 5 showed up that, that wasn't very successful. I'm not stupid, But on the other hand, if you look at it in a more expanded way, it really cost me a lot of money. It wasn't the $1,200 for the venue, except my faculty enjoyed the food, so maybe there was some goodwill in that. So, and the food really was good. Clinton Center, good food, good venue, good food. But, so maybe I got some goodwill out of it with the faculty, maybe, but that wasn't the purpose of the event. So, you know, I may have converted one. Here is a really cool tool that kind of can let you through this, and I'm going to show this to you. It's I steal liberally from the web. I hope y'all do too. Okay, in this particular, can I get? Oh, I don't know how to fix that. Oh well, never mind. Okay, if you go, and I've given you the sites on this paper, and if you want this slideshow so you can click and get to it easier, I'll give it to you. If you can, what you do is you can change this, like the total audience reach, you can change this little booger right here. And you can see the numbers change, and like see how the, 93% investment, you know. Well, let's say we had less people, well, okay, and let's say our leads rate increased. You see that little thing over on the side, the return on investment? The total, let's say my marketing expense, we really went overboard. Look. And it's kind of just a way that you can kind of start playing with it without having to come up with a table or anything. And I think what it does is kind of give you an idea. You know, but what's metrics for you is not going to be metrics for you. This is something very individual. And some of you, how many are you doing this type of stuff right now? Good. Very good. Okay. But I thought this was kind of a cool tool. Here is one for a Super Bowl ad, and I wanted to show you this because you know that they put in the cost of this ad. I just thought it was kind of a good example of $3,500,000, and if you look down there, this was for like a product that sells for $1.50. Okay, the total sales and there were four. In this case, there were four periods of weekly impacts and the base sales, so you got to look at the number of sales. But when you get through this and look at the projected impact for this, and I have to go to the site to show you. Where's that little dial right here? Mm-hmm. So you didn't gain very much by doing that wonderful Super Bowl ad, okay? So, yeah, they reached 50% of their audience, and they got a lot of brand awareness and, you know, all that things that we like to talk about. Incremental products per buyer or unit is 2.5. Projected return on investment is 2%. Now, unless you have another project out there, another reason to do it, and we do a lot of things with Goodwill. I bet all of you support, you can support the college business, but all of you support like Little League teams and all your philanthropy that you do, right? And that's Goodwill. You're not exactly expecting a return on investment in that, and I understand we have those decisions. But that's going to be small amounts of money compared to big investments of a major marketing campaign. So 2%, I'd question this if I was the boss of this person. Not that I want my boss to question me about my last one. Okay, what metrics to choose? Do not use cost measures. Yes, we use cost because that's how we measure the stuff, but do not use cost measures only. Use the impact on company revenue. That's what we have to do. And understand the contribution of each marketing program. We should be measuring marketing programs across channels, everything you do, whether it's social media, whether it's an ad campaign, whether it's, you know, an event, a trade show. All those things you can even think about your membership with SMEI. How many leads do you get out of it? What good information simply because you talk across the I mean, you can actually work on some of that. But to begin with, all those metrics can be daunting because it's all about data, pulling that data into decision making. It's all about the data. You got to collect it, then you got to figure out how you're going to use it, and then you're going to have to make decisions with it. And you're only as good as your data. Right? So your data has to be good. If you start a marketing metrics program, what you're going to have to do is to start small and begin to add up, because it will take you a while to start figuring out the best way to measure. Like I was talking to Mark on the way over here, I said, we got to start measuring something. okay? And applications is a good way to begin for us. How many applications? So we're going to do that. All right. Last night got to me, can you tell? Okay, these are just some things to think about, and this is just a lot of words, but I want you to look at it kind of the way the program would happen. What happens is the revenue, you have the contribution from each program that you do. Whatever program that is, you got that contribution. That adds up to the aggregate of your department or whatever unit you're working with. Don't forget your profit per customer, because we know that a customer that you keep is cheaper than the customer you have to go out and get new every day. We all know that because we experience that all the time. So that understanding and keeping that retention of that customer is very important to us. So the value of a customer that stays with you does increase over time. So when you look at this business performance stuff, what basically this is our past, this is our current, and this is where we're going to look at the future. Like, what is the expected forecast? Now, this is going to be hard for us to do until we start gathering our data. So the first step is you got to look at your data and data mine it and dig into it. Okay, that's what we have to do, is kind of dig into that data. But the diagnosis metrics is response rates. Well, we can look at response rates to our ads. We can look at the click-throughs and things of that nature. We certainly, I bet most of you in your head know how much it costs you to acquire a new customer. You know, and if you don't, you maybe start thinking about that. Oh, what does it cost me to get that customer? Okay, because that's a big expense. You know, it takes a lot sometimes. You compare getting that to keeping one. That's a big number. And then what's the incremental cost, the marginal cost to serve that one more customer? We don't get into some of that data, but it's kind of interesting. And people will say, I don't want to waste my time doing all that. I need to be out selling. Well, you know, if you don't do this, you might be selling to the wrong person. Or you're missing that salesperson over here or that sale on the other side. It's important to pay attention to this type of things. This net promoter score, that's kind of a funny word to say, the referrals. People will refer you because you're good. That's what that is. So those are some of the measures you need to think about. So how do we begin? First, we're going to establish our objectives. What is the purpose of the whole program? You design your programs around the metrics. You know, if I can't measure it, why am I doing it? What's the purpose? So you need to start establishing your objectives. And we all have sales objectives. But think about a little bit more. Think about the return of that campaign or whatever you're doing, or your time on the bottom line. Determine what, when, and how. Oh, how, when. You know, when we talk about measuring, we have to determine what our revenue cycle is. For the College of Business, the revenue cycle would be at the beginning of the semester when they actually register in classes and are going to pay us money, right? That's our revenue cycle. So I can think about a revenue cycle 3 times a year, fall, spring, summer, or I can think about, since most of my students come in the fall, I could think about the whole year, all this moving down into that fall registration. Probably for us, we need to do more than one. So you need to think about how long that revenue cycle is. If I have a campaign, at what point is that campaign going to result down here in sales? So it's kind of a funnel, because you kick out all the people that don't qualify. You know all about those qualifying those leads, and you know, and you get down there and they run out of money. How many of you sell time? You sell time on your stations, or you sell time, and they're running out of money, and they say, I can't buy from you today, and you're going, you can't afford not to buy from me today, right? But you have to kind of you have to show your value to them too. So you got to decide what, when, and how. And sometimes that when is understanding where your revenues come in and at what point they come in. And I can't tell you what that is. I might know them for my business, but you know them for your business. Focus only on the decisions that improve your marketing plan. Leave the rest alone. This focuses. It's a real good way to focus. And there's a lot of different ways to measure, but this is the first kind of a way. I'm going to give you some rules of thumb. No more than 5 metrics, because you don't have time, energy, effort. It's not worth it. So choose 5 important ones. Measure success for every campaign, every event, whatever you do, every sales rep. And I bet you do get measured as a sales rep, right? You're measured as a sales rep. I mean, that's on the boards. That's the easiest way to look at our salespeople. But what about the support people and all the marketing? Show the trends over time. Create a dashboard that you put up, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, What's your dashboard? For us, if we're going to measure the number of applications, I probably should look at that monthly. That's a monthly dashboard. Are we up? Are we down? What did we compare to last year? Do I even have last year? You know, you've got to start establishing that. And yeah, I can get that. Well, we're looking at that. Have recognition systems tied to goals. Salespeople, again, what do they get? Commission. I mean, how easy can that be to recognize people who sell? On the other hand, a lot of us are in jobs that there is no bottom sale when we're in marketing. But I need to have recognition systems tied to those goals. Track your results and then use those to improve. Here's your free help, okay? Marketing, a lot of this material came from the Marketing Metrics and Analysis as a free download. I find it a little cumbersome of a book. However, it does have some pretty good stuff in there, and it shows you the beginning and at least starts you thinking. This is written by Accenture. Now, these people want you to hire them. You don't have to do that. But they want, trust me, they want you to hire them to do it. But you don't have to do that. The Accenture is one that just talks about the importance of marketing analytics and what you maybe want to start doing. And this one talks a lot about what I didn't talk about, those inbound marketing analytics based on your Google, your social media. And this is a book. It's a big download, but it's better than buying a book. It's free. Free's good. And you can find it here. They will ask your name, but you know, you can give that to them. And this HubSpot is a really is a good company for a lot of the web social media type of stuff. So these are some of the free helps that we have that I would suggest if you really want some snooze learn, you know, right, insomnia, good for insomnia. But they're free, and they're free on the web. And that's all I got today. Wow. Any questions?
Jane, what are you going to do next year?
Not this. I found this to be it's a really very detailed. You can see how detailed you can get into it, and you have to decide what's important. So if I were starting, you know, if you're going to increase your sales and you want to affect the bottom line by a certain return on investment, and you probably can't guess that because you hadn't been measuring it in the past, then just start measuring, and then you can change it. Just because you start it today doesn't mean you can't add it or change it later. So yeah, it's a interesting topic. I think we need a degree in this. No questions? Boy, y'all are easy.
Jane, I got a question, and it's probably a question for everybody here that's in marketing. How do you all measure yourselves? I know the TV stations, the bank, more depositors. Are y'all doing any of this stuff, or is somebody doing it for you?
We do it on a more of a centralized level. We're separating to 16 different bank groups, and so I just cover Central Arkansas. I mean, it's easy to track like social media and things like that, and clicks and all that kind of stuff, but we don't go that detailed here in Central Arkansas at all. It's going to be very helpful.
I'm just wondering if your bosses are.
And since, no, I don't think so.
I think it's something that if you take it to your boss and show, because I always worry about them cutting, you know, and marketing is the first place because they don't want to cut people. No one wants to cut people. You know, they don't want to throw people out on the street. So they will go for the fat in the budget, and fat, they think, sometimes is marketing. But again, you don't do your marketing, you get how they know about your product. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't measure brand image before and after and during a campaign. I'm not saying we don't do all that. But you've got to figure out how much you're doing to the bottom line. No? Anybody else measuring anything besides sales? We all measure sales.
Well, Jane, I'm going to just throw this out.
Okay.
We measure a lot in my law firm.
Good.
We got producers, and that's not just the lawyers. That's the legal assistants and paralegals. They're all timekeepers. And we get a monthly report. It all extends over to collections.
Excellent.
And that's not all we review everybody at the end of the year and bring them in, and sometimes we bring them in earlier and say, you just not cutting. No, we don't do that.
That's where they cut their budgets.
Right, and it helps us use the word focus. And we focus on a problem, and it's usually that they don't know how to keep time. find folks getting up out of their chairs and walking down the halls and chatting and drinking too much coffee and going to the bathroom. I don't know, you know, it just, but it says to everyone that we are using metrics. And I don't know that maybe other law firms are as tight as we are. We're a bunch of accountants.
That's your problem, though. But accountants are good at bean counting, right? And accountants measure. And when you are in a case where it's all billable hours for you, right? And so, for the most part, you've got billable hours. And so, you know, you do need to track that. I mean, in our case, how do I track the productivity of a faculty member? And I said today in a meeting, I said, well, how do we predict Dean's productivity? Because I feel like I'm in a meeting all day. You know, is that productive? Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no. But we look at faculty, we look at a number of publications they have, we look at the number of student credit hours they generate, we look at, what else do we look at? Their teaching evaluations, you know. But it's community activities. But those are really soft measures sometimes. It's really hard to measure your productivity. But I can and will be receiving information on how many SSCHs does it take to pay for me to be a faculty member? Now we can generate that. How much do I need to generate in terms of student credit hours to pay for my salary? Well, once I'm paid for, then you kind of get some more to pay the light bill, right? I mean, so it's a lot of metrics, and higher education is not really good at that. And I'm not going to do that to my faculty, but I am going to look at my programming. You know, what am I doing? But we do a lot of things for the community. We had a business forum last week, and it was on the healthcare initiative. And it was very good. It's a very complicated topic. We had a good audience. We've had about 150. Well, I don't expect that to come back in any return on investment in any way, but it is part of what we do for the community. So you can't measure everything in ROI, but we should be able, if it's something that is specifically to produce revenue, for me it's to get students in, or for you it's just to produce that sale, then you should be measuring that. This other we measure in terms of goodwill.
Jane, stepping back to your example of your event for just a minute.
Now you can't talk about that outside of here.
I'm not gonna, we're still inside.
It's already
remember, I'm on the advisory board.
Of UCA, I know. I know that. That's why you have to have a brain, you know, something out when you leave.
Well, I'll keep that. Anyway.
Don't you tell Pat that.
A tool like that can not only be used after the fact to kind of measure the success, but sometimes it can be used before the event to kind of project whether it has a cost-benefit, relationship there. And I guess one of the things that you did a very good job, I think, orchestrating that event and costing it out, sort of like an accountant would.
Ooh.
If I costed it out as a marketer, I probably would not have put those, what I would consider fixed costs, in there, the salaries of the professors and stuff, because I mean they're already covered, and if they weren't at that event, they're going to be home watching television, and unless you're.
But if I had 20 people there and those 15 faculty talked to them, and then I converted them because my faculty member said, I teach this great class and you're the student I need, well, no.
No, I'm saying they were there, but from a different slant, you could almost look at that cost as a free, not really. To make it,
I understand what you're saying.
To make it look better, and
to get it out of the negative.
To get it out of the negative.
Yeah.
Well, if I wanted to get it out of the negative, it'd be.
Ways of looking at cost.
Oh, certainly. But I would encourage you to include those costs, because what if you did those similar costs to another event and then they more than paid for themselves, and what you're doing is you're just proving your worth. I'm being honest, I'm putting all my cost in there, but I'm proving my worth.
Adding those costs up an event. I mean,
It's
eventually
big.
those costs are going to be a lot more than what you're actually incurring
Obviously.
in the annual salary. I mean, you're double counting to a degree.
Well, but this is for one camp. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
when I was with one company in NetGain, we were tracking the cost of every event 5 years ago on a spreadsheet and everything, and every sales related to that was able to provide ROI. There's a lot of examples I can show you and can give you, but everything that we were doing was tracked. And for me, because when the CEO was asking, okay, Well, we invested $500,000 this year in the meetings or trade shows or whatever. How much sales we have? Well, we were able to say, well, we get $3 million because of the shows that we've done. And if we're not able to do it,
That's when they start cutting.
Right.
I get your part. They're paid for anyway. But on the other hand, you know, well, they didn't skip class. They didn't do anything. This would be like them. And I was grateful they're there, but I would say that the faculty make a difference if you're trying to convert a student to convert a prospect to a student for us. The faculty are the ones that make the difference. They don't give a rat's about the dean. They care about the faculty who are going to be in that class.
No, I agree.
So,
Good job.
well, thank you. And don't you tell Pat about my event.
Thank you, Jane. Our speaker gift today is lunch for 2.
Ooh.
Or you can go once, twice
Oh, okay.
to
Thank you.
Benihana next
Oh.
week.
All right. I'll go drown my sorrows at Benihana. Thank you.